8. Malabula, the fraudulent and malicious, the panderers and seducers, the flatterers. These are Bulges 1 and 2. Summary. Dismounted from Geryon, the poets find themselves in the 8th circle called Malabula, the evil ditches. This is the upper half of the hell of the fraudulent and malicious. Malabula is a great circle of stone that slopes like an amphitheater. The slopes are divided into 10 concentric ditches, and within these ditches, each with his own kind, are punished those guilty of simple fraud. A series of stone dikes runs like spokes from the edge of the great cliff face to the center of the place, and these serve as bridges. The poets bear left toward the first ditch, and Dante observes below him and to his right the sinners of the first bolgia, the panderers and seducers. These make 2 files, one along either bank of the ditch, and are driven at an endless fast walk by horned demons who hurry them along with great lashes. In life, these sinners goaded others on to serve their own foul purposes. So in hell are they driven in their turn. The horned demons who drive them symbolize the sinner's own vicious natures, embodiments of their own guilty consciences. Dante may or may not have intended the horns of the demons to symbolize cuckoldry and adultery. The poets see Venedico, Caccianemico, and Jason in the first pit, and pass on to the second, where they find the souls of the flatterers sunk in excrement, the true equivalent of their false flatteries on earth. They observe Alessio Interminelli and Thais and pass on. There is in hell a vast and sloping ground called Malbolgia, a lost place of stone, as black as the great cliff that seals it round. Precisely in the center of that space there yawns a well extremely wide and deep. I shall discuss it in its proper place. The border that remains between the well pit and the great cliff forms an enormous circle, and 10 descending troughs are cut in it, offering a general prospect like the ground that lies around one of those ancient castles whose walls are girded many times round by concentric moats. And just as from the portal the castle's bridges run from moat to the last bank, so from the great rock wall across the embankments and the ditches, high and narrow cliffs run to the central well, which cuts and gathers them like radii. Here, shaken from the back of Geryon, we found ourselves. My guide kept to the left, and I walked after him, so we moved on. Below, on my right, and filling the first ditch along both banks, new souls in pain appeared, new torments, and new devils black as pitch. All of these sinners were naked. On our side of the middle they walked toward us, on the other in our direction, but with swifter stride. Just so the Romans, because of the great throng in the year of Jubilee, divide the bridge in order that the crowds may pass along, so that all face the castle as they go, on one side toward St. Peter's, while on the other all move along facing toward Mount Giordano. And everywhere along that hideous track I saw horned demons with enormous lashes move through those souls, scourging them on the back. Ah, how the stragglers of that long route stirred their legs' quick march at the first crack of the lash. Certainly no one waited a second or third. As we went on, one face in that procession caught my eye, and I said, "That sinner there, it is certainly not the first time I've seen that one." I stopped, therefore, to study him, and my guide, out of his kindness, waited, and even allowed me to walk back a few steps at the sinner's side. And that flayed spirit, seeing me turn round, thought to hide his face, but I called to him, "You there that walk along with your eyes on the ground, if those are not false features, then I know you, as Venedico Caccianemico of Bologna. What brings you here among this pretty crew?" And he replied, "I speak unwillingly, but something in your living voice, in which I hear the world again, stirs and compels me. It was I who brought the fair Gisola round to serve the will and lust of the Marquis. However sordid that old tale may sound, there are many more from Bologna who weep away eternity in this ditch. We feel it so, there are not as many tongues that are taught to say Sipa in all the land that lies between the Reno and the Sabeno, as you must know from the many tales of our avarice and spleen. And as he spoke, one of those lashes fell across his back, and the demon cried, "Move on, you pimp! There are no women here to sell." Turning away then, I rejoined my guide. We came in a few steps to a raised ridge that made a passage to the other side. This we climbed easily, and turning right along the jagged crest, we left behind the eternal circling of those souls in flight. And when we reached the part at which the stone was tunneled for the passage of the scourge, my guide said, "Stop a minute and look down on those other misbegotten wraiths of sin. You have not seen their faces, for they move in the same direction we were headed in." So from that bridge we looked down on the throng that hurried toward us on the other side. Here, too, the whiplash hurried them along, and the good master, studying that train, said, "Look there at that great soul that approaches and seems to shed no tears for all his pain. What kingliness moves with him even in hell? It is Jason, who by courage and good advice made off with the Colchian ram. Later it fell that he passed Lemnos, where the women of Wrath, enraged by Venus's curse that drove their lovers out of their arms, put all their males to death. There, with his honeyed tongue and his dishonest lover's wiles, he guiled Hypsipyle, who, in the slaughter, had gulled all the rest. And there he left her, pregnant and forsaken. Such guilt condemns him to such punishment, and also for Medea is vengeance taken. All seducers march here to the whip, and let us say no more about this valley and those it closes in its stony grip. We had already come to where the walk crosses the second bank, from which it lifts another arch, spanning from rock to rock. Here we heard people whine in the next chasm, and knock and thump themselves with open palms and blubber through their snouts, as if in spasm. Steaming from that pit, a vapor rose over the banks, crusting them with a slime that sickened my eyes and hammered at my nose. That chasm sinks so deep we could not sight its bottom anywhere until we climbed along the rock arch to its greatest height. Once there I peered down, and I saw long lines of people in a river of excrement that seemed the overflow of the world's latrines. I saw among the felons of that pit one wraith who might or might not have been tonsured. One could not tell. He was so smeared with shit. He bellowed, "You there, why do you stare at me more than at all the others in this stew?" And I to him, "Because if memory serves me, I knew you when your hair was dry. You are Alessio Interminelli de Luca. That's why I pick you from this filthy fry." And he then, beating himself on his clown's head, "Down to this have the flatteries I sold the living sunk me here among the dead." And my guide prompted then lean forward a bit and look beyond him. There, do you see that one scratching herself with dungy nails, the strumpet who fidgets to her feet, then to a crouch? It is the whore Thais, who told her lover when he sent to ask her, "Do you think me much? Much? Nay, past all believing. And with this, let us turn from the sight of this abyss." Notes. Malabula. In Italian, this means ditch or pouch. That combination of meanings is not possible in a single English word, but it is well to bear in mind that Dante intended both meanings, not only a ditch of evil, but a pouch full of it, a filthy treasure of ill-gotten souls. Line 5, a well. This is the final pit of hell, and in it are punished the treacherous, those guilty of compound fraud. Line 22, below on my right. See diagram. The poets have, as usual, borne left from the point where Geryon left them. They are walking along the outer ridge of the first Bolgia, and the sinners are below them on the right. The panderers are walking toward them along the near bank. The seducers are walking the other way, in the same direction as the poets. Along the far bank, Dante places the seducers closer to the center of hell, thereby indicating that their sin is a shade worse than that of the panderers. It is difficult to see why Dante should think so, but since both receive exactly the same punishment, the distinction is more or less academic. 28 through 33. Boniface VIII had proclaimed 1300 a jubilee year, and consequently throngs of pilgrims had come to Rome. Since the date of the vision is also 1300, the Roman throngs are moving back and forth across the Tiber via Ponte Castello, Sant'Angelo, at the very time Dante is watching the sinners in hell. 47. Thought to hide his face. The general rule of the sinners above the Great Barrier Cliff has been a great willingness, in fact an eagerness to make themselves known and to be remembered in the world. From this point to the bottom of hell, that rule is reversed, and the sinners, with a few exceptions, try to conceal their identity, asking only to be forgotten. This change should be noted as one more evidence of Dante's architectural sense of detail. This exploitation of many interrelated themes and their progression from point to point of the great journey give the poem its symphonic and many-leveled richness. Line 50, Venedico Caccianimico, a nobleman of Bologna, to win the favor of the Marquis Obizzo d'Este of Ferrara. Caccianemico acted as the procurer of his own sister Gisola, called La Bella, or Gisola Bella. Line 61, Sipa. Bolognese dialect for sea is yes. Bologna lies between the Cevenna and the Reno. This is a master taunt at Bologna as a city of panderers and seducers, for it clearly means that the Bolognese then living on earth were fewer in number than the Bolognese dead who had been assigned to this bolgia. Line 70, turning right, see diagram. 83 to 96, Jason, leader of the Argonauts. He carried off the Colchian ram, the golden fleece, the good advice that helped him when the fleece was given by Medea, daughter of the king of Colchis, whom Jason took with him and later abandoned for Creusa. Also, for Medea is vengeance taken. In the course of his very Grecian life, Jason had previously seduced Hypsipyle and deserted her to continue his voyage after the fleece. She was one of the women of Lemnos whom Aphrodite, because they no longer worshipped her, cursed with a foul smell, which made them unbearable to their husbands and lovers. The women took their epic revenge by banding together to kill all their males, but Hypsipyle managed to save her father, King Thoas, by pretending to the women that she had already killed him. The flatterers, Bolgia too. It should be noted as characteristic of Dante's style that he deliberately coarsens his language when he wishes to describe certain kinds of coarseness. The device has earned Dante the title of Master of the Disgusting. It may well be added that what is disgusting in the Victorian drawing room may be the essential landscape of hell, among the demons who guard the grafters and among the sowers of discord. Dante reinvokes the same gargoyle quality. It would be ridiculous prudery to refine Dante's diction at these points. Line 122. Alessio Interminelli de Luca, one of the noble families of the Interminelli or Intermeni, a prominent white family of Lucca. About all that is known of Alessio is the fact that he was still alive in 1295. 131. Thais. The flattery uttered by Thais is put into her mouth by Terence in his Eunuchus, Act 3. Thais' lover had sent her a slave and later sent a servant to ask if she thanked him much. Magnas vero agere gratias Thais mihi. The servant reported her as answering ingentis. Cicero later commented on the passage as an example of immoderate flattery, and Dante's conception of Thais probably springs from this source.